Last but not least, we have the Weyland Corporation, typically associated with its brute force tactics and big money. This is an all-out rush deck, meaning that you want to win hard and fast. Unequivocally, you will suffer when it comes to the late game, so do get your agenda scored early and pressure with your dual win condition, where you can either score 7 agenda points or threaten a kill with punitive counter-strike as punishment for the runner stealing your agendas. Now, the strengths of Weyland are rather obvious. Of the 4 Sparring Corp decks, this has the biggest money engine of them all, and it can make money super fast. It has 12 Operation Economy cards, and they are all transactions, meaning that they all synergize with your identity ability, giving you big money. Not only that, when you score agendas, you potentially have the opportunity to gain more money than when you started, because some of these agendas give you money for scoring them, or as you score them, in fact, such as Hostile Takeover that you see here. So the money is going to rake in very quickly, and you are going to leverage on this money to either res some menacing ice that cause a lot of problems to the runner, or just kill them outright with your punitive counter-strikes, meat damage. Now, this corp is not without its weaknesses. More so than the other 3 sparring decks, this deck heavily suffers if the runner gets to match point, meaning to say that they only need 1 more agenda to win. Once that happens, you can no longer threaten with punitive counter-strike, because if they steal the last agenda, they will win the game before you can kill them with meat damage. So you want to avoid the runner getting too many early agendas at all costs. Another big problem is that you don't really have many good ways to score your big agenda in the Global Food Initiative. This deck doesn't really help you much, as it doesn't provide any defensive upgrades to protect your agenda, nor is your agenda self-protecting. So this is a big problem when you are trying to score this agenda. The only protective measure you have is punitive counter-strike. And on that note, I'll bring up a rules question that will probably come up when you play this deck. Because punitive counter-strike is based on the printed agenda points of the stolen agenda, if the runner steals a Global Food Initiative on their turn, on your next turn, punitive counter-strike can do 3 meat damage. Even though the Global Food Initiative is only worth 2 agenda points to the runner, since the number 3 is printed there, it does 3 meat damage. And 3 is a very crucial number, because that means you can kill a runner with a full hand size with only 2 punitive counter-strikes. Now, some interesting lines of play to make with this deck. The most notable one would be the synergy with Brian Stinson and punitive counter-strike, allowing you to fork the runner into making bad decisions. If you pump the right amount of credits into punitive counter-strike, the runner will either be forced to lose the trace and take the meat damage, which might potentially kill them, or if they attempt to beat the trace, they will spend money to do so and end up with fewer than 6 credits, putting them in Brian Stinson range, meaning to say at 0 to 5 credits, you can start using Brian Stinson to then play transactions from your archives in the same turn. This gives you a huge burst of economy. Don't forget that Brian Stinson ignores all costs. This includes the play costs of the transaction, meaning that your hedge funds are worth 9 credits plus 1 from your identity ability, and your IPOs are worth 13 credits plus 1 from your ID ability. This gives you a huge influx of money for further shenanigans down the road, be it raising more ice or threatening future punitive counter-strikes. So this is a very powerful line of play that you have access to. Another interesting line of play starts right on turn 1 when you have Hedge Fund and Brian Stinson in your opening hand. If you are lucky enough to have that, a very possible turn 1 play is to play the Hedge Fund, install a Brian Stinson somewhere, and then res it, and then use it to play the Hedge Fund that you just played from your bin. This gives you a huge starting burst of money and will allow you to subsequently dominate the rest of the game with your huge credit pool. This is a very good strategy against more practiced runners who will try to stay above the 6 credit level required to turn off Brian Stinson. Now, the problem with this line of play is that you expose your R&D and HQ on turn 1, meaning that the runner can easily exploit this to get lots of agendas early, which again feeds into your downside of not being able to close out the game well. So this is a very risky play, but if your centrals hold up and you have expensive ice at the ready to make use of all these credits, you will find yourself doing very well. after making this turn 1 play.